Gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame induction ceremony honoring our nation's space heroes. Please rise for the presentation of colors by Boy Scout Troop 369 from Merritt Island, Florida, followed by the national anthem performed by Jennifer Fiore.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Yes, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief Operating Officer of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, Mr. William Moore.
Thank you, everyone. Be seated. Jennifer, thank you so much. You always do such an outstanding job for us for this event. We appreciate it. Welcome, everyone, to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. On behalf of our 55,000 employees, including those here at the Visitor Complex of Delaware North worldwide, I'd like to welcome you today to the induction ceremony celebrating the 11th class of shuttle astronauts into the U.S. Hall of Fame. It is a privilege to host this induction ceremony and to be part of a momentous occasion where so many astronaut heroes gather to recognize and welcome a chosen few into the ranks of this elite group of space explorers. This has been an emotional and exciting year for us. We watched the last shuttle launches, last 2 or 3 here. We watched the 30-year program come to an end. We shed a few tears as Discovery, the first of our shuttles, yes, will always feel like they belong here, no matter where their homes are, made her sunrise departure on April 7th aboard a Boeing 747, circling the rocket garden in its final farewell. Soon, Endeavour will follow her. But with those difficult goodbyes comes an even bigger welcome home as we prepare, just across the visitor complex right over here, to give Atlantis the most incredible home, other than space, that an orbiter has ever known. Work is well underway, and we are on track for our July 2013 opening date for Atlanta's state-of-the-art $100 million, 65,000 square foot attraction. We look forward to telling the story of the space shuttle, more importantly, the thousands that worked on her and those that flew her. As if that were not exciting enough, even more changes are underway here at the visitor complex to completely change our guest experience for all of you. As part of our 10-year master plan, we're building a brand new entrance designed to build excitement and anticipation of what you'll experience. Opening this fall, the entrance will bring guests in through the rocket garden and will be guided along a vapor trail on a clear and purposeful path through the visitor complex and onto the Atlantis exhibit when it opens next year. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge a few people that will be with us today. Among those, Kennedy Space Center Director Robert Cabana, who will join us shortly with Hall of Fame astronauts, as well as astronauts Rhea Sadin, Senior Florida State Senator Bill Nelson, who are in the audience today. And I would also like to, and more importantly, recognize the important and significant contribution to today's ceremony by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, led by their Board of Directors Chairman Charlie Duke, their Vice Chairman Dan Brandenstein, and Executive Director Len LeBlanc. Thank you. And now I would like to welcome to the stage today's Master of Ceremonies. He is CNN's Miami correspondent, responsible for CNN's news coverage in Florida and the Caribbean. Since joining CNN in 1981, he has covered every major hurricane to hit Florida and the Gulf Coast. He is also CNN's principal correspondent for coverage of the U.S. space program, having covered events such as John Glenn's 1998 return to space, the Mars Pathfinder mission, the 2005 return to flight mission, and numerous other shuttle launches. He has won 2 Emmy Awards and has been honored numerous times for his work. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage John Zarella.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, it's a great crowd. There's always a great crowd here. I've had the opportunity to be here to MC this event on numerous occasions, and it is terrific. And thanks, Bill, for the intro. You didn't tell anybody about my new job, did you? You didn't tell them? No. See, what's going to happen is once they're finished, a lot of you who are going to come back here and get to go through and the new exhibit, well, the first person you're going to see is going to be me. That's when I leave CNN, my new job. I'm going to be the greeter outside the space shuttle, and I'll take you in and, you know, show you a little bit of this and that, whatever I know, and then I'll let the real experts take over and give you the real story. So look for me when you come back. That's going to be my next job. And I am honored again to be the Master of Ceremonies here. I think I've been here at least 10 times to do one of these events. It's spectacular. Just a few months ago, I was here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Americans in Orbit. When we honored the Mercury astronauts. And I'll tell you what, this place feels like home to me after all of these years, and I certainly have some tremendous memories. Before Discovery's last flight into space, I had a wonderful opportunity to fly with the commander, Steve Lindsay, in the STA, the shuttle training aircraft, and doing the touch and goes out at the runways. They practiced what it's like to come back to Earth. And I didn't get sick. It was good. I didn't get sick. And Bob Cabana, who, of course, is the center director here for a documentary that we were doing on the shuttle program, Bob was gracious enough to take me inside of the shuttle Discovery, and he actually let me sit in the commander's seat, too, which was kind of nice of him. So another special treat that I've had. So a lot of tremendous memories here. Thanks to the glorious 30-year history of the Space Shuttle program. And now it is my privilege to introduce to you the attending members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. He piloted Gemini 7, commanded Gemini 12, orbited the moon on Apollo 8, and commanded the successful failure that was Apollo 13. Aboard Apollo 8, he, along with crewmates Frank Borman and Bill Anders, captivated a television audience of millions on Christmas Eve by beaming back pictures of the rugged lunar surface while reading from the book of Genesis. His near miss aboard Apollo 13 was the subject of a blockbuster movie starring Tom Hanks. He now serves as Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Chairman Emeritus Jim Lovell. He piloted Gemini 6 and commanded Gemini 9 and Apollo 10, for which he was cited in the Guinness Book of World Records for highest speed ever attained by man. During the Apollo 10 reentry, his spacecraft attained 24,791 statute miles per hour. He logged his fourth space flight as Apollo commander of the Apollo-Soyuz test project, culminating in the historic first meeting in space between American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts. He served as a defense advisor to Ronald Reagan during the presidential campaign and has since served on numerous NASA advisory boards. Tom Stafford. Selected as an astronaut by NASA way back in 1963, he made his first space flight as pilot on the three-day Gemini 11 mission, during which he left the spacecraft for a 44-minute spacewalk. In November 1969, he circled 60 miles above the moon while his Apollo 12 crewmates walked on its surface. He retired from NASA in 1972 to become executive vice president of those New Orleans Saints professional football team. Dick Gordon. He served as lunar module pilot aboard the first manned mission of the Apollo program, the 11-day Apollo 7 mission. He later served as chief of the Skylab branch of the Flight Crew Directorate, overseeing components of the United States' first space station. Today, he shares his thoughts on spaceflight through periodic columns, lectures, and his book, The All-American Boys. Walt Cunningham. He served as lunar module pilot for Apollo 9 and as backup commander of the first Skylab mission. He developed the hardware and procedures used by the first crew to perform critical in-flight repairs. He is the founder and past president of the Association of Space Explorers, co-founder of the B612 Foundation, a group that aims to defend Earth from asteroid impacts. In 2010, he served as co-chair of the NASA Advisory Council Ad Hoc Task Force on Planetary Defense, Rusty Schweikert. He was selected by NASA for its fifth class of astronauts in April 1966. In 1970, he was a member of the Apollo 13 crew that struggled to return to Earth after an oxygen tank explosion aborted the mission as it approached the moon. He served as backup lunar module pilot for Apollo 8 and 11 and backup commander for Apollo 16. He later commanded the Space Shuttle Enterprise approach and landing test flights in 1977. Fred Hayes. He was the sixth person to step foot on the moon during Apollo 14, NASA's third moon landing. He and the late Alan Shepard explored the moon's hilly Frau Mora region in 1971 on the first mission devoted to lunar science. They established the record for the longest on-foot traverse, exceeding 41 kilometers. He retired from NASA and founded the Institute for Noetic Sciences in an effort to integrate scientific disciplines in the study of human consciousness. He was a 2005 nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize, Edgar Mitchell. He became the 10th person to walk on the moon aboard Apollo 16 in 1972. During 3 outside excursions over 3 days, Duke and fellow astronaut John Young drove a lunar rover 16 miles and collected 213 pounds of lunar rock and soil, and also claimed the record for the longest lunar spacewalk. Today, he's president of Charlie Duke Enterprises and is an active speaker. Charlie Duke. He worked for 59 days in orbit as a member of the second Skylab space station crew in 1973, spending 11 hours on 2 spacewalks outside of Skylab. In 1982, he commanded the third orbital test flight of Space Shuttle Columbia, the only mission to land at White Sands, New Mexico. He retired from NASA and the Marine Corps as a colonel. in 1984, Jack Lausma. He also lived in space for 59 days in 1973 aboard the Skylab space station, during which he conducted 3 spacewalks to exchange film and erect a sun shield to cool the orbiting laboratory. 10 years later, he returned to space aboard Columbia on the first flight of the Space Lab Laboratory. Currently is an adjunct professor at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Owen Garriott. Selected as one of the first science astronauts by NASA in June 1965, he was the science pilot of Skylab 4. While aboard this orbital space station for a record 84 days, he was the crewman primarily responsible for the 338 hours of Apollo telescope mount operations. Making extensive operations of the Sun, Ed Gibson. He was the pilot of the first human spaceflight mission managed jointly by 2 nations, the United States and Russia, the Apollo-Soyuz test project. He then commanded 3 space shuttle flights, including the first mission labeled as operational, STS-5. He is retired from NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center as Associate Center Director for Programs. Vance Brand. He piloted the maiden flight of the Space Shuttle program on the orbiter Columbia in 1981. He then commanded 3 additional shuttle missions, including the first mission to capture, repair, and release a satellite. In the early 1990s, he served as director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center and later served as president of Thiokol Aerospace Group in Utah. Bob Crippen. He was the commander of one of the 2 crews that flew the initial Space Shuttle Enterprise approach and landing test flights. In 1981, he commanded the 2nd orbital test flight of the Space Shuttle Columbia, becoming the first and only pilot to manually fly an aerospace vehicle from Mach 25 to landing. He was commander of the Space Shuttle Discovery on Flight 51I, Joe Engle. He piloted the 4th and final test flight of Space Shuttle Columbia before commanding Discovery on its maiden voyage in 1984. His last assignment was on Challenger, STS-61A, the first Space Lab science mission planned and controlled by a foreign customer and the first to fly 8 crew members. He later served as president for Raytheon Aerospace Engineering. Hank Hartsfield. He flew to space twice on missions STS-5 and STS-51A. His rookie flight, the shuttle's first operational mission, deployed 2 satellites. His second mission featured the world's first space salvage. Using a jet backpack, he and his crewmate Dale Gardner captured 2 malfunctioning satellites. After leaving NASA in 1985, he served as Chief Executive Officer of Space Industries International and later was chairman of Viridian Corporation until he retired in 2004. Joe Allen. A 3-flight veteran, he and fellow crewmate Bob Crippen were the first to fly an orbiter in close proximity to a free-flying satellite on STS-7. He went on to command the return-to-flight mission after Challenger was lost. Rick Houck. He has flown 4 shuttle missions, piloting the first night launch and commanding the others, including the maiden flight of Endeavour. He spent 261 hours in space during STS-32. He also served as chief of NASA's Astronaut Office for 5 years and is currently Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of United Space Alliance. Dan Brandenstein. He flew 3 space shuttle missions, 1 as pilot and 2 as commander, and served as a staff member of the Presidential Commission that investigated the Challenger accident in 1986 and led to the return-to-flight team responsible for implementing safety modifications to the shuttle fleet. He returned to space in 1989 as commander of Columbia, STS-28. He currently serves as the Vice President and General Manager of Boeing's Space Exploration Division Brewster Shaw Jr. He commanded 4 of his 5 space shuttle missions, including the first docking of a shuttle with the Russian space station Mir. As pilot of STS-41B, performed the first shuttle landing at KSC's landing facility. Served as chief of the astronaut office until September 1994, retired from NASA soon thereafter. He currently spends his time giving motivational speeches and setting world aviation records. Robert Hoot Gibson. He will forever be remembered by an iconic photo taken of him free flying without a tether over the Earth on mission STS-41B. During the flight, he tested the manned maneuvering unit, a jet-powered backpack that allowed him to float away from the shuttle. 6 years later, he returned to space aboard Discovery to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope. Bruce McCandless. He flew 3 shuttle missions and was a member of the first spacewalking team to repair a satellite in orbit. He launched twice more on the missions immediately before and after the loss of Challenger. He retains the distinction of being the only American to test fly the Russian manned maneuvering unit. Currently, he serves as Director of Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education at Western Washington University. George Pinky Nelson. He has flown 5 space shuttle missions, including the maiden flight of Discovery, and logged 770 hours and 27 minutes in space. During his third flight, he helped deploy the Hubble Space Telescope and assisted in its servicing on the next mission. Today, he's a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Kansas. Steve Hawley. He is a veteran of 5 shuttle missions and the first astronaut to log 1,000 hours on the shuttle. He made NASA's first unplanned spacewalk and performed 3 spacewalks during his first Hubble Space Telescope repair mission. He is currently a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Jeff Hoffman. He is a veteran of 3 space shuttle missions and was the first African-American space shuttle commander. He has led the agency's Safety and Mission Assurance Office, the Human Spaceflight Office, and served as NASA's Deputy Administrator and as its Acting Administrator. Fred Gregory. He flew 5 space shuttle missions and 1 long-duration Mir space station mission. He piloted 2 flights, including the 3rd flight following the Challenger tragedy. He went on to command 2 missions before becoming the 3rd American to live aboard the Russian Mir space station and set an American record of 128 days in orbit. John Blaha. She flew 4 space shuttle missions during her 12 years in the astronaut corps. As a mission specialist, she took part in the first and only 3-person spacewalk in May of 1992. She served as mission specialist aboard the first Hubble Space Telescope repair mission and later served as the payload commander. She co-authored an elementary science textbook series in partnership with NASA, currently serves as Associate Dean for graduate programs in the University of Virginia School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Kathy Thornton. He is a 4-flight veteran, piloting his first 2 space shuttle missions. Later, he commanded STS-65, during which he and his crew set a record for the longest shuttle mission at that time, at STS-88, the first space station assembly mission. He is currently the center director right here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Robert Cabana. He piloted at STS-38, a Department of Defense mission, then commanded STS-51, which concluded with the first night landing at the Kennedy Space Center. On his 3rd and final mission, STS-105, he commanded the International Space Station for 117 days. He has served in many NASA leadership roles, including ISS Deputy Program Manager, but is now Senior Vice President, Deputy General Manager of the Advanced Programs Group at Orbital Sciences Corporation, where he oversees all human spaceflight for the company. Frank Culbertson. He piloted the precedent-setting mission to the crippled Hubble Space Telescope in 1993, capturing and restoring it to full capability through a record 5 spacewalks. Then commanded the second maintenance mission. He lived aboard the International Space Station from November 2nd through May 2003 as commander of Expedition 6, the first crew of U.S. astronauts to return to Earth in the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. Currently, he is SpaceX Vice President of Astronaut Safety and Mission Assurance, Ken Bowersox. Ladies and gentlemen, our Hall of Fame astronauts. And now I'd like to welcome to the podium Hall of Fame astronaut and Kennedy Space Center Director, Mr. Robert Cabana.
Thanks, John. On behalf of NASA and the entire KSC team, I'd like to welcome you all to the Kennedy Space Center. This is always a fun event and something that I look forward to. It's great to have these 3 outstanding inductees back here in Florida. Franklin, your journey from Costa Rica to coming up here on this stage is something very special, and I think for any child that ever had a dream, you're an inspiration. Chile, you know, you pretty much excelled as an astronaut. I think those 4 stars you wore in the Air Force show your excellence there, but I bet if I asked you what you're most proud of, your finest accomplishment, it'd be Kathy and those 4 girls, and I'm sorry they couldn't be here. Charlie? Pozdravляю, мой друг. I promise not to tell any stories about you in Russia if you promise not to tell any about me, Chief. In spite of what some of you may have heard, the ending of the shuttle program has not ended human spaceflight at NASA, and KSC is not shutting down. KSC continues to make great strides at becoming a multi-user government and commercial spaceport of the future. Renovations out at Launchpad 39B, the Vehicle Assembly Building, the LCC, are all on track to support the Space Launch System and the multi-purpose crew vehicle. In fact, assembly of the first test multi-purpose crew vehicle, Orion, hardware is arriving at this time. Right now, it's being assembled over in the ONC, newly refurbished ONC High Bay for a test flight in 2014. And there are visible signs that the commercial space industry continues to make progress also. We've got Space Florida continuing to prepare OPF Bay 3 for Boeing and their CST-100 spacecraft. Yesterday, Sierra Nevada announced an increased presence here at KSC. And SpaceX Falcon 9 launch coming up here with Dragon, taking cargo to the International Space Station, shows their progress. Our path forward continues to be challenging, but the KSC team is definitely up to the challenge, and I know we're going to excel. So to Franklin, Chile, and Charlie, my sincere congratulations on a well-deserved honor. And to Chile and Charlie, Sox and Frank and I are just glad somebody else is going to walk in behind us next year.
Thank you, Bob. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut and Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Chairman, Charlie Duke.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be here with you today, and I want to thank you for supporting this great event. The inductions are always a highlight of the year for me. And the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation was founded by the 6 surviving members of the America's original Mercury 7 astronauts in 1984. The foundation has been going strong for almost 3 decades, and I am proud to be its chairman. Our goal is to aid the United States in retaining its world leadership in science and technology by providing scholarships to top college students pursuing degrees in these fields. In the beginning, the award was $1,000, and there were 7 scholarships given, one representing each Mercury astronaut. The foundation now distributes 28 $10,000 scholarships annually and has awarded, since its inception, nearly $3.5 million. Our scholarships are the largest monetary award given in the United States to science and engineering students at the undergraduate level, and it's based solely on merit. Our scholarship recipients, let's give it. Our scholarship recipients are the best and brightest in the country, and we have some here. Would all of our scholarships that are present stand up and let us welcome you? Thank you so much. We're glad to support your educational efforts. Not only does the foundation provide scholarships, but we also promote to the general public the importance of science, technology, and space exploration in the U.S. One way we do this is by serving as a consultant to NASA and the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex for the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, where we supervise the selection process of new astronauts for induction. To do so, we have put together an outside committee of Hall of Fame astronauts, aerospace professionals, journalists, retired NASA, and industry officials, some of which are here today. Would these individuals please stand so that we can thank you for your support? Anybody? I know you're here. Yeah, there's Bob. Thank you very much for helping in selecting the class of 2012. Now, to celebrate this year's inductees, we held a wonderful gala last night over at the Apollo Saturn V Center. Some of y'all might have been there. And we heard from the 19 astronaut scholars who were working all around the globe, launching rockets, researching medical advancements, and furthering technology. And this event today and last night would not have been possible without our friends at NASA. Bob Cabana, who you've already heard from, as well as Kevin Kelly and Bill Moore. Bill's here somewhere, I know. There we are. Thank you, Bill. Who at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. Bill, your sponsorship is really invaluable for us and your help in making this all possible. I'd also like to thank our top induction sponsors this year, which include ATK, the Boeing Company, Courtyard by Marriott in Cocoa Beach, the Northrop Grumman Company, James Long, Lockheed Martin, and all the others who supported this event. And now let's give them all a hand. They've been very generous in their support. And now let me turn it back over to John to induct this year's class into the Hall of Fame. Welcome to the club, guys.
Thank you, Charlie. You folks are really lucky today because, as I said, I've done many of these, and this is a tremendous group, probably the largest group that I think we've ever had, right, in a long time. And the time has arrived. The induction of the 11th class of Space Shuttle astronauts into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. They will be introduced in the order in which they flew into space. Our first inductee is Dr. Franklin R. Chang Diaz. During his 25 years in the astronaut program, Franklin Chang Diaz became one of only 2 astronauts to fly on 7 space shuttle missions: STS-61C, STS-34, STS-46, STS-60, STS-75, STS-91, and STS-111. Did I leave any out, Franklin? He has logged more than 1,601 hours in space, a total that includes 19 hours and 31 minutes accumulated during 3 spacewalks. His missions into space included numerous scientific experiments and achievements, as well as the deployment of numerous satellites. As part of the crew of STS-34 Atlantis, he took part in the successful deployment of the Galileo spacecraft on its journey to explore Jupiter. He has mapped atmospheric ozone levels, researched on the effects of microgravity on plants, and flew on the first joint U.S.-Russian space shuttle mission on which a Russian cosmonaut was a crew member. On his final mission, STS-111, he installed the mobile-based system on the International Space Station, and he replaced the failed wrist joint on the Canada-II arm. Chang Diaz retired from NASA in July of 2005 and then founded Ad Astra Rocket Company, which is dedicated to the development of advanced plasma rocket propulsion technology. Ad Astra's efforts have led to the production of a rocket that has the theoretical, Franklin tells me it's more than theoretical, capability of carrying a manned mission to Mars in just 39 days. Let's take a look at a few video highlights from his career.
Captain Franklin, you are now go to remove the MBS thermal blankets.
Okay, thanks. Really excited to be here. It's going to be my first flight. I'm really looking forward to it.
Come on, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia, mission 61C, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Roger, roll, Columbia.
That's a nice, pretty picture, Franklin. Thank you.
1, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis on a mission for new utility in space.
1 was to ignition and liftoff of Discovery on a whole new era of space flight between the United States and Russia.
Shuttle Columbia, continuing space research through tethered satellite technology. In liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery as NASA embarks on the final mission to dock with Russia's space station Mir. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, extending our reach while expanding our research in space.
This is a good view from Franklin Chang Diaz's helmet camera looking past those debris shields.
Ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Franklin Chang Diaz. To present Franklin Chang Diaz for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut George Pinky Nelson.
Franklin and Peggy. Oh, it's an honor to do this, Franklin. Franklin was the first Latin American to fly in space. He was, see, he was born in Costa Rica, and just like kids all over the world, Franklin wanted to be an astronaut when he grew up. He followed the early space missions on the radio in Costa Rica, didn't speak English, but he knew the names of the early astronauts. He knew Al Shepard, and John Young, and all you guys. But there was one astronaut he could never figure out who was on, seemed like every mission. There was this astronaut named Roger that they kept talking about. Did you ever get to meet him? Yeah, good. In 1967, Franklin wrote a letter to Wernher von Braun that said, "What do I need to do to be an astronaut?" And von Braun didn't answer, but he did get an answer back from someone at the Marshall Space Flight Center. And there was actually an underlined part of the letter that said, well, one of the things you need to be is a U.S. citizen. And not to be deterred, after he graduated from high school, Franklin left Costa Rica and came to the United States to be an astronaut. Didn't speak English, so he went to high school for a year and and learned to speak English. Then he went on to college, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and on to MIT. It was an auspicious beginning when he came to the United States. Like I said, he didn't speak English, and I don't know how long it was, Franklin, but it was some significant period of time when Franklin survived on coffee donut, which was the only English phrase he knew. But he did learn English, and he learned engineering, and he went to MIT, and he learned plasma physics, and he learned to fly. And he became a United States citizen. And in 1980, he became an astronaut candidate, which is an absolutely remarkable thing for a kid from Costa Rica to pretty much will himself to do, right? So he moved to Houston. He married Peggy. His first flight was STS-61C, and I owe Franklin from that flight. He actually saved me from a life of drug abuse. We had 5 launch attempts on that mission, and after one of the early launch attempts, Franklin came up to me, and I had been taking, almost from superstition, we used to take this medication called Scopedex. It was a little half a pill of scopolamine and half a pill of dextrine. So one was an upper and one was a downer. And the rumor was that it would keep you from getting space sick. And after, I think it was the second launch attempt, Franklin came up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Tinky, I don't think you should take Scopedex anymore. It makes you really weird." And I kicked it. Never took it again. So over 12 years, Franklin flew 7 times. Franklin was probably the most comfortable astronaut I've known. He just seemed to fit in whatever was going on around there. But I think just as importantly and uniquely in the astronaut office, Franklin came in as a scientist and an engineer, and he worked really hard to maintain that status while he was being assigned to flights and working on missions. He used to carry around a notebook where he would solve the Maxwell's equations and the Navier-Stokes equations, and I remember looking at it one day. Actually, Charlie Bolden showed it to me. At the top of the page, it said something like, "I will now show that we can build the nozzle," and then it was followed by all of these equations. And so he continued to push the envelope, and after he left NASA, Franklin has continued to push the envelope at his company, Ad Astra, and he's got an engine that runs. I mean, it's hard enough to solve Maxwell's equations and the Navier-Stokes equations together, right? But to actually build a machine that solves those equations in the way you want and produces thrust out the back end is an amazing thing. And As he says, he thinks he can get us to Mars in 39 days if we work at it. So, Franklin, we can only hope the country has the vision and the courage to pursue these kind of goals. And you've done incredible things, but I really believe that your biggest impact is yet to come. So I can't imagine the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame without Franklin Chang in it. So, welcome aboard, Franklin.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I don't have words prepared, but I will speak from the heart. I'm a product of two cultures, and this honor here has a special meaning to me because it's given by those who have always been my heroes. And these folks here are the people that I looked up to since I was very young. And I think this whole thing is like a chain, and there are many others, probably young kids like I was, that are looking up to us and following their dreams. And one thing I always say is that no one gets anywhere without someone else's help. And I sure had my dose of help from a lot of people in Costa Rica and the United States, beginning with my mother. Mamá, muchas gracias por venir con ayudarme. Ahora sí. My mother. And many other members of my family. I have brothers. I have one of my daughters here. I have my wife, Peggy, who's been behind me all this time, difficult times of danger of going into space so many times. Thank you, Peggy, for being by my side. But I'm actually today most thankful to this great nation that in 1968 opened the doors for me, a dreamer that came to the shores of this country, and this country opened the doors to the land of opportunity, to the American dream. And I can say that I fulfilled that dream. And the dream is alive here in this country. It's a great country. It's the best country on this planet. Perhaps we have to look at it from the outside to appreciate the beauty that we have in this 50 states, the goals, the aspirations, and the difficulties that we face. But the future is bright, and we've got, the table served. We need to keep it and protect it. And I think for these young scholars that are looking to the future is great. The future is absolutely great. And this country will be the leader. And I am very proud to be part of that team. So thank you so much for this honor.
Congratulations, Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, and welcome to the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. Roger just called for you. I told him you were busy. You'd call him back. Our second inductee today is General Kevin P. Chilton. A three-time space shuttle astronaut, Kevin Chilton has logged more than 704 hours in space. He served as the pilot on STS-49 and STS-59 and as the commander of STS-76. In 1992, Chilton launched aboard STS-49, the maiden voyage of the space shuttle Endeavour. During the mission, the crew performed a record 4 EVAs to retrieve, repair, and deploy the International Telecommunications Satellite, and to demonstrate and evaluate numerous EVA tasks to be used for the assembly of the space station Freedom, the proposed orbiting laboratory that served as the forerunner to the International Space Station. As pilot on STS-59, he took part in the deployment of the Space Radar Laboratory, or SRL, to study the Earth's surface and atmosphere. And as commander on STS-76, he guided the shuttle for its third docking with the Russian space station Mir, which began a continuous 2-year presence of Americans aboard the Russian space station. After an 11-year career with NASA, Chilton returned to the Air Force, where he most recently served as Commander, United States Strategic Command, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, a position in which he was responsible for the global command and control of U.S. strategic forces to meet decisive national security objectives. Chilton retired from the Air Force on February 1st, 2011, having attained the rank of 4-star general. Let's take a look at some of the video highlights from his career.
Of the maiden voyage of Endeavour on a satellite rescue mission.
The use of this ergometer is part of an evaluation to investigate alternatives to the shuttle treadmill. Zero and liftoff of the space shuttle Endeavour, observing the changes of planet Earth.
Roger roll, Endeavour. The commander, Sid Gutierrez, in the blue shirt, pilot Kevin Chilton in the red shirt, and payload commander Linda Godwin just moving out of the frame.
The final thing that's unique about this flight over the other 2 previous flights to Mir is the particular science we're conducting on the mission.
1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Atlantis on the third shuttle Mir docking flight.
We have a good image of you, Chili.
This is the first time in my 3 shuttle flights that I've actually gone someplace when I left the planet Earth, and it's a very nice feeling.
Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Kevin Chilton. To present Kevin Chilton for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut Dan Brandenstein.
Well, good afternoon. You heard the rundown of Chili's technical achievements, but one of the things I remember most about Chili is his dedication to his family, a dedicated family man. And he is fortunate to have his wife, Kathy, with him here today. She's a general in her own right. He also is the father of 4 daughters, which demonstrates he was really a fighter pilot. And they refer to the daughters as the 4 M's. Daughter number 1, Madison, is graduating from the United States Air Force Academy and will put on a lieutenant's bar here in a few days. Daughter number 2, Mary Kate, is a sophomore at the University of Nebraska. Daughter number 3, Megan, is graduating from high school and going on to Penn State University. And daughter number 4, Morgan, is Kathy says going to go balloon riding, but I don't think that's really true. She's a sophomore in high school. So you can imagine these 4 M's coming home to dinner at night and having dinner with 2 generals every night. Well, in addition to being a terrific family man, there are a few other things that Chili has done. He graduated as a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Academy in '76, went on to get a master's as a Guggenheim Fellowship at Columbia, had operational tours in RF-4s and F-15s, went to U.S. Air Force Squadron Officer School, was first in his class, a little bit of a trend developing here. Went back to flying F-15s, went to TPS, Air Force TPS, was first in his class, and then he went on to be a test pilot at Eglin. He joined the astronaut office in 1988, the class of '88, and his first flight was on STS-49. I was fortunate enough to be the commander of that flight, and he was a rookie on the flight. But let you tell me, he performed like a pro. Just a quick recap. If you remember the mission, we were supposed to go up, have 4 spacewalks. 1, we were going to rescue a satellite, Intelsat, and then we were going to do 3 spacewalks to develop operational procedures for the assembly of a space station. Well, the reality of the mission was that the first attempt to capture the satellite didn't work, and we chased it around for a while, and it went out of control, and we backed off, and they got it under control again, came back the next day, chased it even more, still didn't get it, and ultimately redesigned the mission on the fly, and were successful by having 3 people outside to catch the satellite. Now, Chili's role as the pilot, between the KT, Kathy Thornton, Bruce Melnick on the arm, and myself chasing the satellite, we were all pretty focused on that, and Chili was instrumental in that mission because he kept the situational awareness. He knew the big picture of what was going on. At any point in time, he kept saying, okay, if we got to abort, we can do this. We got to abort, we can do that. So he was really on top of where we were, what was happening, and fortunately we didn't have to do any of that, but it was very important, and that's why I said even though he was a rookie, he was operating like a pro. Well, then after the second day where we didn't capture it, we had to come up with a new idea on how to get a hold of this, and I remember that night, we theoretically were supposed to be asleep, and Kevin and I are peering out the back window, looking in the payload bay, looking for natural resources on how to come up with another approach. A little while later, a couple of other crew heads popped up out of the middeck, and we devised, actually, I think we came up with 2 approaches that we relayed to the ground. But once again, Kevin was key in developing these ideas, and he was a great artist. So back then, we didn't have all this internet stuff on board the vehicle. So he was drawing little sketches on a paper and holding them up in front of the TV camera to show the ground what our idea was. Well, fortunately, the idea worked. We went through all the safety thought process of how to have 3 people do a spacewalk and sold it to the ground. Now, after the flight, we sat around and said, you know, 2 years before we'd have told them we wanted to do it this way, we'd have never been able to sell it. But we were able to do it overnight, and once again, Chili was key to that. So he performed like a pro throughout this whole mission. One of the experiences we had during training actually was right down here at the Cape. We were training one day, trained hard all day, and then we went into town that evening. Had a big van. We had a crew of 7 in there. We were going to go in and do some post-training relaxing. It was during Lent, and Kevin wasn't going to partake of some of the training or post-flight training we were going to do, so he was a designated driver. So after a night of debriefing, and we were on our way back, and as we came through the gate at Cape Canaveral, I remember him saying, he said, "We got to be careful here because the security hangs out and you easy to get a speeding ticket." And we round the bend, and lo and behold, there are flashing lights in our rearview mirror. So he wasn't exactly doing what he said, but we got pulled over, and we had the world's greatest security person. He came up and lectured for 20 minutes on the dangers of encountering the wildlife at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station at high speed. You got your deer. They come up through the window and they kill you. You got your hogs. You run over them, you roll in a ditch, and you die. You got your gators. They run you in the ditch, and you die too, you know. And then he said, "Who's your supervisor?" And Kevin goes, because I was sitting next to him. And so anyhow, after his 20-minute lecture, he let us go. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, in my office back in Houston, I get this letter with the citation on it about this criminal that they had arrested at the Cape. And I figured after enduring that 20-minute lecture by that overzealous security person, he'd had enough punishment, and we let him off the hook. After that, he flew 2 more shuttle missions. He was the pilot on the Space Radar Laboratory mission, and then he commanded SDS-76 to the Mir, precursor to the space station. Also in this time frame, Brewster retired and left the office, so Max Q, that world-famous rock band, needed a new rhythm guitarist. And Chili stepped right in and took over and did a great job at that. As he finished his flights, he went over and he was a deputy program manager for the International Space Station. You know, things up there now working great. Well, he was in the early development of the operational procedures and played a key role in the success of the space station. After that, he returned to the Air Force. His trend of excellence continued there. He rapidly rose through the ranks and had a variety of command and staff billets. The last 2 were probably the greatest. He was commander of the U.S. Space Command, and he was also the commander following that of the Strategic Command. And that's where he got his 4th star. The Strategic Command was responsible, or there he had the responsibilities for the plans and operations for all U.S. forces conducting strategic deterrence and also for all DoD space and cyberspace operations. So it was really a significant role. You know, as he left the office and having worked with him and knew that he was, you know, really a sharp guy, I had him pegged. I figured he was going to go back and get 4 stars, and I kind of figured he was going to end up being Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Well, Chili proved to be smarter than that. Chief of Staff lives in the Pentagon, does all his work in Washington. So Chili lines up the Stratcom where he's in Omaha and he's doing real operations. And he did a really great job at that also because throughout his career, he demonstrated strong leadership, intelligence, exceptional intelligence, unparalleled devotion to duty, and visionary planning. And to attest to this, the key speakers at his Air Force retirement and change of command were Defense Secretary Gates, who was followed by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen, followed by the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Schwartz, and Chili, today it's just me. And I am honored to say that, ladies and gentlemen, the newest member of the Astronaut Hall of Fame, Kevin Chilton.
Well, thank you, Skipper. Dan was my first commander, and we called him our skipper since he was in the Navy, and he's still my skipper. Thanks for those kind words. The part about the driving, though, coming through the gate there, of course, I was stone sober. So when this sergeant had finished correcting my driving skills, and he asked who my boss was, you know, I did one of these, and Dan did one of these. So I knew I might get off a little light that night. Folks, it's hard. It's so hard for me. I was telling Kathy when I was sitting down there, I said, I'm getting really nervous, you know, and I've spoken in front of large crowds before, certainly, so why? It's because I'm so humbled by this. And this is just such a tremendous honor to be recognized by the folks who are recognizing us today, both people that I grew up admiring here in the first 2 rows, and in the back row, folks that I proudly call colleagues and friends. And so to be standing last night on the stage with Franklin Chang and Charlie Precourt, two great friends, great Americans, and two people that are so deserving of this recognition, for me to have the opportunity to share the stage with them and then to stand here with this tremendous legacy of our great space program and of our great nation gives me pause, and I'm so humbled by it. You know, this is a day of thanks, and you have to be careful on days of thanks that you might leave somebody out. So thank you all. The other thing I want to clear up right now, because I've gotten some strange looks since I've been down here this week. Yes, I really am Kevin Chilton. That guy up there with all the hair, he's a stand-in. I've had more double takes today. People look, or the last couple of days, they look at that picture and they look at me and said, "What happened to you?" I say, 4 teenage daughters. Charlie Duke and Lynn LeBlanc from the ASF, I want to commend you for just putting on a wonderful show, a wonderful event, but also for your leadership with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, and clearly that's a big part of the Hall of Fame here, is supporting that. And to all the scholars that are here today, as Franklin says, you have such a bright future, and I just hope sometime along the way that you find a little time in your careers, your very interesting and exciting careers that you have in front of you, to pay a little back to NASA and come back and do a little work for this great organization, or perhaps for the Department of Defense as well. It's a great way to bring your skills and knowledge sets back to help the United States of America. And I offer my congratulations to all of you for being Astronaut Scholarship Fellows. For the panel that selected us to this, the chairman of that panel is Mr. Bob Seek. And so Bob's not an astronaut. He's sitting down there. He's a race car driver is what he'll tell you. But I think all of us here left the planet under the watchful tutelage and guidance and decision-making, critical decision-making of our launch control director, and that was Bob Seek. Every time I left the planet, Bob, when you said we were go, I knew we were going, and I knew we were coming back. So, Bob, thanks so much for making me a part of this. I, too, would like to thank my mother and father, who are alive and still with me, thankfully, in Southern California, but because of health reasons could not travel to be with us here today. The 4 M's, Madison, Mary, Megan, and Morgan, are just the light of my lives. And guess what they're doing in May? Studying for final exams. So Kathy and I thought that it was more important for them to finish that. And so I'm so proud of the 4 of them. And my hero. You know, folks always accuse us astronauts of being heroes, and I tell them all the time, you got it wrong. Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, standing on top of the roof of the Launch Control Center with a 6-year-old daughter in one hand, a 4-year-old daughter in the other hand, a good friend of the family holding your 2-year-old daughter, and you're 8 months pregnant, and your husband's 3 miles away sitting on top of 4.5 million pounds of high explosives. Now, who's the hero? It's my wife, Kathy. I love you. You know, like Franklin said, none of us could achieve anything in life without a lot of help. And there's a whole long list of people I could list, but I'm not going to. I'm going to mention 4 people, though, that are with us here today. Because they affected my life early on, and they, to me, represent every one of you in the audience and on stage here, and other people that aren't here today who have helped me along the way through my life. And that's former Major, now retired Colonel Bob Smith and his wife Cheryl, who was my first flight commander when I was a first lieutenant flying RF-4Cs over in Okinawa, and my boss at the time, then Lieutenant Colonel Ken Habedank, his wife Karen, now retired Major General Ken Habedank. These 2 gentlemen took a chance on me when I was a first lieutenant, and they opened some doors that I'm convinced started a series of dominoes and the opening of other doors and bridges to cross that never would have happened, ever would have happened, if these two great leaders of our United States Air Force had not done that. On top of that, these two men taught me at an early age what it meant to lead people and take care of them, as did their spouses who brought me in as a young bachelor into their family. So Ken and Karen, Bob and Cheryl, God bless you. Thank you for traveling here to be with us here today, and you represent so many good things that have happened in my life. And last night when we were coming home from the wonderful dinner we had and gala reception, I was sitting on the bus in front of Karen, and Ken and Karen and Bob and Cheryl really hadn't as much exposure to NASA, and they just had a wonderful time last night. And Karen looked at me and paused in the middle, and she says, "You know, Chili, you really have 3 families." And I thought for a minute, and I thought, you know, you're right. I have my wife, Kathy, and 4 beautiful daughters. I have a great Air Force family that I started to be a member of in 1972. And I have this family, the NASA family. What a blessed man I am to have 3 families that love me and that I so dearly love. God bless you all, and thanks again so much for this wonderful honor.
Congratulations, Kevin Chilton, and welcome to the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. Remember Bob Seek, you know, after there would be a delay and, you know, they'd have to postpone a shuttle, and he'd come over and we'd have a little press conference, and Bob used to always say, and I'd ask him, Bob, what went wrong? Why'd you have to delay? Bob would always say, John, this is a complicated vehicle. It's not a 747. He always said that. Our third inductee today is Colonel Charles J. Precourt. A veteran of 4 space shuttle flights, Charles Precourt spent 15 years in the space program and logged a total of 932 hours in space. As a mission specialist on STS-55 Columbia, he took part in nearly 90 experiments investigating life sciences, material sciences, physics, robotics, astronomy, the Earth and its atmosphere. On his second flight, STS-71, Precourt piloted the first space shuttle mission to dock with the Russian space station Mir. As commander of STS-84, he and the Atlantis crew transferred nearly 4 tons of supplies and equipment between the space shuttle and the Mir. On his final shuttle mission, STS-91, Precourt served as commander during the 9th and final shuttle Mir docking mission, during which the crew conducted the alpha magnetic spectrometer experiment, which involved first-of-its-kind research of antimatter in space. After leaving NASA in March 2005, Precourt went to work for ATK Aerospace Systems of Magna, Utah. He currently serves as General Manager and Vice President of Space Launch Systems for ATK. Let's take a look at some video highlights from his career.
3, 2, 1. Solid rocket ignition and liftoff. Liftoff at Columbia on a very peaceful finish. Roll program.
Let's get some really good data, and everything's working really well for us. So we just wanted to take a couple of minutes and wish you happy birthday, Leonard. You gotta love it when a plan comes together.
The drag chute being deployed by pilot Charlie Precourt and nose gear touchdown.
Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis, maintaining America's constant presence in space.
Charlie Precourt, preparing for his 4th flight into space today. He served as commander of STS-84 and pilot on mission STS-71, and he was a mission specialist on STS-55.
Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Charles J. Precourt. To present Charles Precourt for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut Boot Gibson.
Thank you very much. And Charlie, thank you so much for letting me be part of your very special day. This is really a pleasure for me. Charlie has some very important people that are here today. Number one, his beautiful wife of 34 years, Lynn, sitting down here in the very front row with us. Charlie also has 2 of his 3 children here today, Michelle and Amy, both of whom are overachievers as well in medical school. His other daughter, Sarah, would be here, but she's an overachiever as well. She is less than a month from delivering their 3rd grandchild. So he has some very important people here today, and extremely important, Mom and Dad. Charles and Helen Precourt from Hudson, Massachusetts are here with us today. Mom and Dad, congratulations. You brought up a real superstar. You know, my first thought about what I'm going to do when I get up here is, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to roast Charlie. And I got to thinking about it, and actually, for once, I was guilty of some good judgment, because it occurred to me, you know what? He's got a whole heck of a lot more on me than I've got on him. So maybe it might be smart, for a change, not to do that. So I will tell you one joke I used to subject him to all the time. And I used to tell him that his class, the 1990 class of astronauts, prior to them, we were all wooden ships and iron men. And starting with the 1990 class, they were all just a bunch of computer geeks. I used to subject him to that all the time. But you know what? I figured out about this man. He is good at absolutely everything he touches. He is fluent in French and Russian. And as we mentioned, he's a veteran of 4 space shuttle flights, but he got to experience 5 MECOs. MECO being main engine cutoff, and that's when we launch and we get up to orbital speed, we shut the main engines down and we get MECO. Charlie's first powered flight lasted 3 seconds, and they shut down the main engines on the launch pad. And of course he expected to be going a little bit faster, and of course you're sitting there thinking, I sure hope those solid rocket motors don't choose to ignite now, or that the bolts holding us to the launch pad don't fire. So he got to experience in his career 5 MECOs along the way. I got to work with him on STS-71. As the chief astronaut at the time, I picked the very best and brightest crew that I could put together to go do the first docking that a space shuttle ever did with the space station Mir. So of course, that meant Charlie as the pilot. I wasn't planning on being there myself, but I am so happy that I got to fly and work and train with Charlie. And it was an absolute pleasure working with him. Biggest challenge for me on that mission was not any of the flight dynamics or any of the flying tasks. It was attempting, underline the word attempting, to learn to speak Russian. Because at the time, most of the Russians really couldn't speak much of any English. And they couldn't afford at the time to buy English textbooks or hire English teachers. So we had to attempt to learn to speak Russian. And the problem with that is, I are an engineer. Engineers don't talk good, not even in English. And so trying to learn Russian for me was a real struggle. And we had a Russian language teacher, this nice middle-aged Russian lady, Tatiana, But Tatiana was not the slightest bit impressed that we were astronauts or that we were going to go do the first Mir docking. She expected us to study, do our homework, and be able to speak Russian. And she'd rattle off some sentence at us, and Greg Harbaugh and I would stare at her with this deer-in-the-headlights look. And, of course, Charlie understood every single word. I did apply myself, and I've learned 2 sentences in Russian. Anytime someone would try to speak to me in Russian, I would say, "Я говорю по-русски очень плохо и понимаю ничего," which is, I speak Russian very badly and understand nothing. But I actually learned a second sentence, because when we launched aboard Atlantis, we had Anatoly Solovyev and Nikolai Budarin on our crew aboard Atlantis to take over the Mir space station when we got there. And so, what if I needed to talk to them? So I memorized another sentence, and it was, "Извините, пожалуйста, у нас есть маленький пожар на борту прямо сейчас," which is, "Excuse me, please, we have a small fire on board right now." So I was ready in case that happened. Training and readiness is really what we've got to do. Now, the other thing was, I've mentioned how much Tatiana tormented us. Well, I learned an expression every time I'd be really exasperated, which was every time we went to Russian language class. I would look at Tatiana and I would say, "Moya samaya lubimaya muchitelnitsa." And she'd say, "Нет, нет, нет," which is, of course, no, 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 because of my vast command of the Russian language. And what I was saying to her, if I had said, "Moya samaya lubimaya uchitelnitsa," that's my most favorite teacher. But if you just put an M in front of uchitelnitsa, it becomes "Moya samaya lubimaya muchitelnitsa," which is my most favorite torturer. So that was my way of tormenting her in return for all the stress that she put me through. Well, after training and flying with Charlie and seeing him in action, I said something about him in 1995, and Charlie, I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but you're about to hear it. And what I said about him was, you know, after working with him and getting to know him, I will be really surprised if he isn't chief astronaut one day. Well, guess what? After 4 brilliant missions and 3 times going to the Mir space station, including the very last docking with Mir, in 1998, Charlie became the chief astronaut. And he went on from there to be the deputy program manager of the International Space Station. And as we know, he is now the vice president at ATK. He has gone right to the very top in everything he's ever done. And we are all here today to celebrate just your latest great achievement. So from all of us at the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, congratulations, Charlie, and welcome to the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much. And I think you all understand now why I had so much fun flying with Hoot. We used to say Hoot's a hoot. And there's nothing better than when you have a tough mission than to have a sense of humor and to stay together as a team. And Hoot, I'll always respect what you've taught me and the opportunity I had to work with you. So this is a tremendous honor. It's obviously very humbling. And I'm just really thrilled to be here with you today and be able to share some memories and an opportunity to join this fraternity of folks who I think are paying it back in spades. We've had opportunities in the space program that go beyond our wildest dreams, and I'm very, very thrilled in particular that this represents the work of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, who is paying it back, and we get to be a part of that for the students like we have out here today that are inspiring us for what we're able to do for them. So thank you to the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation for all that you're doing. This is a tremendous, tremendous effort. I'm particularly thrilled that I get to be a part of the class of two of my greatest personal heroes, friends, associates, colleagues. Franklin Chang Diaz and I flew together on STS-91, and you know, Franklin is an amazing individual. We put together an experiment on STS-91 that was part of a Nobel winner's science called the alpha magnetic spectrometer. Professor Sam Ting, and he is studying antimatter and the origins of the universe, and Franklin's adeptness at putting together missions like that. He taught a Nobel laureate that human spaceflight means you use the human crew, and Franklin's design of how we managed that experiment for Professor Ting saved that experiment on orbit because we lost our KU band antenna, and all the data that he wanted to collect wouldn't have made it to Earth, but Franklin had figured out ahead of time how to make that happen. It's just a privilege to be a part of this class with you, Franklin. And Chile was my mentor, otherwise known as upperclassman. Just when I came up on the stage, he reminded me to get my chin in, which is what upperclassmen used to do when we were Dooley's freshmen at the academy. 1973 when I first went there, and Kevin's always been a hero, someone that I looked up to, was the model for how to proceed, how to decide, how to choose your way in life. It's just been a thrill and an honor to know you through life, Kevin. The Astronaut Scholarship Foundation is important, as I mentioned, because it's all about the opportunity for us to pay it forward to the next generation. And education is so critical. When I think about my own opportunities in life and how much education meant to me, I think of my parents, Mom and Dad, the wisdom that they had to choose Hudson, Massachusetts, a little town where I went to a 6-room schoolhouse, less than 100 yards from my house. And I learned that it wasn't so much about how much money you pour into the facilities and the tools, but it's a teacher with a motivation to teach in an environment where it's conducive to learning and engaging a student one-on-one and imparting knowledge and using that to leapfrog forward. And thanks, Mom and Dad, for giving me that start. It's just incredible. So, and you think about all the changes in life, and in our lifetimes, the changes have been phenomenal. We grew up in the Cold War, and I went to the Air Force Academy thanks to the education I had. And I found myself in the early 1980s flying F-15s in Germany, and I was flying to the East German border. This was before the wall came down, and lo and behold, there's a MiG on the other side, a MiG aircraft coming close to the border, wagging its wings, and we'd wag our wings and we'd turn away. And then a mere 6 years later, I find myself with our Cold War warriors from the other side, the Russians, interfacing with a young colonel by the name of Vasily Tsibliev, who was my counterpart, became my counterpart as the chief of the Cosmonaut Corps, but he was on the space station, and who would have imagined that as a guy who used to be flying to defend ourselves from them, and we were collaborating in space a mere 6 years later. It's just a tremendous, tremendous change, and to be a part of that is extremely humbling. And then after that mission, to be able to have my wife and my daughters come join me in Star City, Moscow, and to share this momentous change in history, and that the fact that they had been behind me for my entire career. Love you, Lynn. Love you, girls. It just... We brought them to Moscow. We brought them to Moscow, and a parallel universe opened up for us, because when the Cold War was there and the Iron Curtain was up, we had no way of knowing that they lived, dreamt, and imagined a future the same that we did. And my girls got to go to the elementary school just down the street from the parents of Vasily Tsibliev and experience the same thing that they were experiencing back home. Just amazing, amazing turns of events. So as I think forward, and the connection, as Kevin mentioned, the families that we have and how blessed we are, being able to connect my family to this NASA experience has been really incredible. And I'd like to share one little story with you, an anecdote that I hope you'll find as funny as we do, because our family loves to tell it. Our daughter Sarah couldn't be here today, but on my third mission on reentry, we had a very rare condition where we were able to re-enter from north to south over the U.S. We entered over Seattle and transited the entire United States across St. Louis into Florida and landed here at the Kennedy Space Center. And normally we come from south to north up over the Gulf and into Florida. But this particular day was brilliant in weather. I don't think there was a cloud across the entire United States. We came into the reentry. It was about 10 a.m. here, and it was sunrise on the West Coast. And we came plowing through the atmosphere at 40 degrees angle of attack, and we went screaming across the Rocky Mountains, did a roll reversal over top of St. Louis, came in over the northern end of the Florida panhandle down over the Cape, and made that circle to land. Well, we had a crosswind that day, a pretty good one. And as we rolled out on final, right over here to runway 33, I'm going to get, blamed for flying with my hands again here. But we had to crab into the wind, to tack into the wind, to maintain our track down the runway. And the families are adjacent to the runway on the apron, where they could almost reach up and touch the orbiter as it goes by for touchdown. And Sarah was, about 12 years old at the time, and I'm crabbed into the wind, so the nose is pointed right at her. And she thought I was landing right on her head. And so all the adults are behind the kids, and Sarah's up there going, "Dad, get over! Get over! You're going to miss it!" So I came in and we touched down, and I had no idea she was out there, and I got to hear that story after we got into the crew quarters, and she came up to me, "Dad, did you see me? Did you see me?" "Absolutely, Sarah." As an Air Force guy, we never had a landing signal officer get us onto the deck of a ship, but you're my first and only landing signal officer, and you did a tremendous job. So. Once again, I just feel tremendously honored to be able to be part of this team that now gets to pay it forward for the next generation. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Our family connected to the NASA family is just the most unimaginably rewarding thing that we could have ever had in our lifetime. So thank you so much.
Congratulations, Charlie Precourt, and welcome to the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame. The 2012 inductees were selected by a committee of current Hall of Fame astronauts, former NASA officials, historians, journalists. The process is administered by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. To be eligible, an astronaut must have made his or her first flight at least 17 years before the induction year and must be retired at least 5 years from the NASA Astronaut Corps. Candidates must be a U.S. citizen, NASA-trained, commander, pilot, or mission specialist, and must have orbited the Earth at least once and made significant contributions to the study of space. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present to you the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame class of 2012, Franklin R. Chang Diaz, Kevin P. Chilton, and Charlie Precourt. And now all the members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. One final thank you to the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation for all of their great work, and to Bill Moore and his people here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. You know, this two-day event that they put on here, it's not like going to the moon. This is hard work, what they do. It has been my pleasure to be here with you today on behalf of the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex and the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. Thank you for joining us for this historic ceremony. Please remain standing as the Hall of Fame astronauts make their grand exit down the red carpet.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, ladies.